Hey rockers, welcome back to the channel. Happy to have you here. I said I was going to do 10 stories in a row, 10 days in a row, and that's what I'm doing. And this is number 3. So day 3, story 3. I've had a few people ask me, what did you do before you got into music as far as performer and singer and all that stuff? Like what kind of stuff did you get into? So tonight I'm going to talk about how I was a carny at the local fair in central Illinois for a couple of years. And just wanted to let you know, I just got done ingesting this awesome 100 milligram gummy that was given to me by a good friend. And you know who you are. Thanks, man. So I ate this about an hour ago. So I'm probably good for about another hour, hour and a half. Anyway, back to the story. So we're going to go back to 8th grade, right? Probably the year 1978, 1979, something like that. And the 8th grade class takes our class of kids to the high school for what they call high school freshman orientation or something like that. High school orientation. That's what they called it. So we all get on a bus. We go to the high school. By the time I was in 8th grade, I was really kind of already in my own little world, let's say. And they literally took us to the high school, sat us in this auditorium, gave us a big talk about the future, asked us, what we wanted to do. And they said, we're going to give you a little questionnaire. You guys fill it out. It's about your future. We want to know more about you. So, I was already a rebel. I was thinking this whole thing's a joke. I really don't have a big plan for my future. A lot of kids were like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that, a teacher, an engineer. Me, I had no clue, man. And I really didn't care at that point. I was kind of like reading a lot of books and doing a lot of psychedelics by the time I was in 8th grade. I was really into a lot of philosophy and metaphysics already at that point. I was a dumb kid still, don't get me wrong. I had a lot to learn and still do. But back then, man, I was reading magazines like Easy Riders, the motorcycle magazine, and Iron Horse and High Times, stuff like that. I was really into the biker culture, and a lot of my friends rode motorcycles, and they were older than me. And anyway, they took us to high school orientation, and on the paper, I distinctly remember one of the questions said, what do you want to do with your future? And I remember saying, I would honestly like to be a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club or just live in a hippie commune. That was me. I just wanted a simple life or a crazy life. And I was very sincere. I remember other kids looking at my paper going, he's just such a cut up, always joking. But I was dead serious, man. I was really into the culture, Easy Riders and Iron Horse magazine. And I thought, I don't want to live a normal life. I want to live life according to my terms, which I kind of have. But I also have had to go work regular jobs too and stuff. But so they kind of freaked out on me. They were like, this kid's a trip. He won't cut his hair. He wears earrings. He's, I was wearing a denim jacket and my boots. Back then they had these boots called Colorado boots. A lot of the kids love the Colorados, and all the stoners and the kids that kind of thunk for themselves. They used to wear the Colorado boots, man, and the Levi jackets. That's what I wore. We all had our different types of Colorado boots. We didn't have the same kind. It was a style. So no one was like wearing a uniform. We weren't a bunch of sheep. So I remember going up to the fair. The Heart of Illinois Fair was always located really close to the neighborhood I lived in Peoria, Illinois, called Exposition Gardens was the location. I lived in a neighborhood called Rolling Acres in Peoria, starting in the late 70s. And I could walk to the fair every year, and every year there would be all these cool rock stars playing there. And there's so many stories I have about meeting bands at the fair and seeing so many concerts in the 70s and early 80s. But what I would do, I was go up to Exposition Gardens, walk through the neighborhood, smoke the wacky tobacco on the way, of course, and I would hop the fence to the fair. I had a couple spots in the back, behind the back of the fair, and there was another spot with a hole in the fence, and I would either climb and scale the fence to get in free, or I'd go through this hole, always risking getting beaten by some security dude or something. We always had to hurry up and do that. Me and my friends would sneak in a lot. Well, when we go to the fair, we started noticing there was some particular breed of person that was always there. The guys working on the rides, the guys working at the fair, trying to hustle ya. Kind of tough dudes, man. A lot of guys that rode motorcycles too. And so I became enamored with that life. And I thought, you know what I want to do? I want to be a carny. And I decided to start being a carny. So in about 1979, 1980, those couple of years, I would go up to the fair every year. When the fair was being set up, I think it was always in July, I believe. Could have been August, I don't know. But every year it was always the same time. And I would go to the fair, climb the fence, and get into the fair for free. But then I realized if I got there early enough, you didn't have to climb the fence because they were just setting up the fair and you could just walk in the gates, right? And I thought, wow, that'd be a cool way to be a carny. Just walk up to some carnies and ask, can I work with you guys? So I started hanging out, man, and they started noticing this kid with long hair that was young, and I started hanging out at different booths where they had different games you could play to win all these cool prizes. Back then they were playing really cool rock and roll music at the fair still. Now when you go to the fair, you just hear a bunch of crazy commercial garbage and crap, but back then you'd hear like Foghat, Slow Ride, and Kiss, and just cool hard rock, Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. You'd hear it at the fair just walking around, right? So it was a cool place to hang out, man. And you could hang out with people that were black sheep like myself and like many of you. Well, I started hanging out with a particular group of people, and they did a certain job at the fair. These people decided they would, kind of bring me in and let me work for them. Well, I got taken advantage of by a couple of these guys. They were like felons that had done time in prison and stuff. And some of these guys were tough, man. A lot of these guys were like bikers. A lot of these guys were like on the run, like kind of working for the fair and kind of hiding out. A lot of shady dudes, man. Very shady. A lot of partying, a lot of fighting. I would go up to the fair in the morning and one of the dudes would say, hey man, wash my car for me. Would you do that? And I'll pay you whatever at the end of the day. Sure, man. So I'd wash the car, do a real good job, impress these biker carny dudes. And they're a lot older than me, maybe 10 years older. And I was like 13, 14, man. And these guys, I remember washing this guy's car and he never did pay me. And I was so pissed off. And I kept bugging this guy going, man, where's my $10 or whatever it was at the time? But he never paid me. And I started realizing, okay, this guy just taught me a lesson. Don't trust just anybody in this group because a lot of them are going to just scam you or use you. I was young, very young. And, but I had like a little mustache growing in there, and I started shaving early so I could grow a beard easy. And I looked a little older than I was. But I remember walking around the fair, and that's when they still had the old school freak shows that are, not politically correct these days, and they don't have those anymore. But certain people that were born certain ways had no other way to make a living. So a lot of these people would get, scammed or hustled or conned or decide to go into it themselves. And they'd go to these fairs and be in these tents. You'd see I'd be walking around the fair talking to carnies, right? And I'd see Siamese twins walking around, like conjoined at the head or conjoined at the waist. And it was just mind-blowing to me. To me, they weren't freaks. They were interesting people, man. I met Melinda Maxey, one of the coolest bearded women of Illinois. That was one of the only bearded women that I know of that was famous. But Melinda Maxey was the real deal. There was the world's smallest woman who was like this big. There was like... so many people there that were working that circuit. I would just meet so many of them, man. There was all kinds of geek shows, and by that I mean guys that would do just real sickening, weird stuff and swallow stuff and put swords down the throats. They called them geek shows. I remember seeing a woman one time at the fair, and I was really little, and this lady was just like a beautiful woman, right? And there's all these people in the tent. It was real seedy, and people were smoking cigarettes and drinking, and it was late. My parents brought me in this little weird-ass environment, and all of a sudden there was these screams and smoke and flashes of light, and this lady, people started freaking out, but all of a sudden the lady was a monkey, a big like gorilla. Of course, probably in a gorilla suit, but I remember freaking out and running out of that tent. I couldn't believe a lady turned into a gorilla. But I saw like the Snake Man. I saw people, just all kinds of very bizarre, conditions people were born with. And I finally started working for some carnies that did pay me. And their job that they brought me in to do would take the regular old size Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Mountain Dew or whatever bottles, old bottled soda. And they had these little round things that were like built into this wooden, it looked like a desk. So you're behind it, you're in this little trailer, you're behind this little wooden desk thing that's kind of coming out towards you, and there's like three or four round holes that you could stick these bottles into. What we would do is take these metal clips that you clip on the top lip of the bottle that you drink from. You clip these metal clips on there like clamps. you put the bottles down inside these holes, and they had like these firing kilns that would do like torch the bottles. And I learned how to like stretch the bottles and twist them a little bit and make these bottles really cool, right? So in the end, after, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever the time was at the time, I would keep these bottles down in there, and I would learn how to, it was like an art form with glass. So it would start out shaped like a regular bottle and end up like a pretzel, or end up like twisty and stuff. But as long as the bottle could still set up, that's all that mattered. So I got really keen on the art of burning these bottles, and what we would do is fill them with colored water, like orange, blue, green, purple, and then they put a cork in it, right? And these became prizes that people would win for, throwing darts or, throwing a ring around a certain item. I don't remember the game, but I remember it was a lot of fun learning how to do this trade with these carnies. I started walking around the fair and realizing a lot of these people were, total bikers, the kind of dudes I wanted to be, right? And I wanted to be a biker, and all my friends were becoming bikers. And when I was like 10 years old, I had a little Yamaha 80 Enduro motorcycle that my dad bought me, but he got rid of it because my dad almost died on a motorcycle. So he thought, I don't want my son having a motorcycle, and he got rid of it. While I was hanging out at the fair being a carny, and I did this for a couple of years, I would see these guys fighting and drinking and just beating the crap out of each other, man. I'm talking brutal stuff, like violence, man. And like, I was like unbelievable. I would watch this fighting, and these guys would just take these hits like you would see in the old Western movies. Have you ever been hit? God, I have. And it doesn't feel good when someone really hits you really good in the head or something, man. And I've had that happen to me many times. And these guys would take them to the face and to the body, and they just keep going and glowing. They'd be just different body fluids flying out of them because it was so gross and the fights were real. That's about the time I started thinking, maybe I don't want to be a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club after all. Don't know if I could handle that physical side to it all. So I started kind of thinking, not really my kind of dudes. I started realizing those kind of dudes were a particular breed that I respect. Matter of fact, the town I live in is massive motorcycle town. My town has 1,330 people, something like that. And I would say probably a quarter of them are bikers. This is like Sons of Anarchy out here in the mountains, man. And look, some of them are one percenters, the kind that don't give a crap about nothing, and they pretty just much have disdain for everybody in society. But a lot of them are super cool. And if the shit goes down, I'm going to be glad to have those guys on my side, man. It's like a small army. I get along well with all of those cats, the ones I meet. Now, I don't know that many, but, I keep to myself, man, I'm a rocker. Anyway, so being a carny was a lot of fun, right? I ended up getting a lot of jewelry. That's when I started getting into like wearing rings. Back when I was 13, 14, working at the fair, because you'd see all this cool jewelry there, like for sale. And I started being attracted to like skulls and stuff like that. So I got my first leather jacket around that time. That's a whole nother story of how I got that jacket and from who. I have to make a story about how I got my first leather jacket. That's a good one. It's not that nefarious, but it's pretty weird, wild. So I started wearing the jewelry and started wearing the earrings, because when I was 14 is when my father always said, you cannot get your ear pierced, especially two of them. You can't have two ear piercings because that's gay. And back in Illinois, where I'm from, those people really believe that stuff, man. And God, people today think, ew, you're trans. Yourself. No, I'm not. Anyway, back then when I was 14 and like 79, 80, I don't know, 80, I finally did get my ears pierced. And because the stigma was you only get your left ear pierced, otherwise you're gay. I was like, that's the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard in my life, man. As a matter of fact, all my favorite rock stars, most of them have both their ears pierced. So screw the stigma. I was never one of those kids that was led by peer pressure. Ever. I was never a peer pressure kid. I got laid when I wanted to the first time. I had plenty of chances all my life from lecherous women. Honestly, there's some more YouTube stories coming about those too. Yeah, there's a couple in my life that would have been locked up today if that would have happened, because I was way underage. But that's another couple stories, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But where was I going with this, man? The edible's kicking in, man. The edible. Yeah. It's 100 milligrams. And if you look, there's a little chart on the back that tells you can break it into like 10 milligram pieces. I'm like, 10 milligrams? No, thanks. I want to sleep tonight. I have a sleeping problem, a sleeping disorder. I'm literally an insomniac, and it's been rough, man, lately. Back to my story. Where the hell was I? So my dad told me, you know, he forbade me to get tattoos or you know, pierce my ears. So I did pierce my ears, and I did it myself. I literally put pieces of ice on my ear, and I literally pushed the earring right through the cartilage when everything was frozen. I couldn't feel it. I did it to the other ear. Same thing. It was hardcore. And I learned that from my friend Captain Bill. That's how he pierced his ears. And he goes, hey, man, you don't got to go to anybody to pierce your ear. Just get some ice and a needle. I go, I'm not using a needle. He goes, well, then just push it through. So I did that. And that's how my ears got pierced when I was 14. And my dad was pissed. And yep, people often gave me crap too. Oh, you got both your ears pierced, huh? It's like, redneck much? Anyway, so I'm a carny. I'm buying skull rings. I got my ears pierced. I'm wearing a leather jacket. And I'll have to, maybe tomorrow I can tell the story about how I got my leather jacket, just because it's a funny story and it's lighthearted. I've got a lot of rock and roll stories coming up too. Metal, punk, GG. And I was climbing the fence because all of a sudden, after a couple of years of being a carny, these guys were not hooking it up for homie to get in to work in the morning. Like, I'd get there to work and I'd go there and they'd be like, you don't work here. So I'd have to climb the fence just to be a carny. And I'm like, I should be able to walk in, man. I'm getting paid. These cats are paying me and whatever. And I'm learning all these lessons about life. I'm learning how to trust and who not to trust. I'm learning about self-defense. I'm learning about keeping your wits about you. And I'm also doing a lot of drinking and partying, man. There was a lot of drinking going on. That was the beginning of my alcoholic phase that lasted for about 30 years. Yep. I wasn't a daily drinker, but when I did drink, I was always a binge drinker and a blackout drinker. And I want to say, if you're struggling with addiction, if you ever want to get a hold of me, man, I can point you in the right direction. I'm certainly not a counselor, not a psychologist, but I'm the kind of person that if you're struggling and you're in the tribe I'm in, the rock and roll tribe, then I certainly want to see you have some success in your life. A really good friend of mine just went into long-term therapy today for rehab, actually, inpatient, and that's good. I heard from him he's doing great. He's doing really good, man. So if you're struggling, just remember, I struggled for years, man. Lost so many freaking friends. And when you become a carny, next thing you know, I got rid of those Colorado boots that we wore, in 8th grade. And I was wearing full-on railroad boots that they call biker boots. They always got the railroad boots that you can get at like the department stores. Then I graduated to go into like Red Wing, shoe stores, and then Walter Brothers Harley Davidson in Peoria, where I would buy all my leather boots. But my last pair burned in 2020, and these days, man, I can't afford my leather boots. So I got a bunch of cool boots and shoes, but I still need to get a pair of leather ones, man. But being a carny was fun, but it was also the kind of life you wouldn't want to do for long, because some of these dudes are lifers. A lot of them, like I say, end up in the joint, end up locked up. The fights are brutal, and probably only about a quarter of those people that I worked with were even trustworthy, man. So I learned real quick, man, how to fight, who not to fight, when to stay out of a fight, who to drink with, who not to drink with, who not to work for, who to trust. You start learning that stuff early when you're a carny, man. And I'm glad I only did that a couple of years of my life. These days when I go to the fairs or in the carnivals and I see guys working there, I always wonder, are these guys like the guys that I was hanging out with? They don't look like it. But it wouldn't be the kind of gig I would have wanted to have done. And nor did I end up living in a hippie commune either. So there you go, man. I lived a life of a punk rocker and metalhead and outlaw country dude in different phases of my life. And today, it's just doing the same thing, man. Hosting the Church of Rock radio show every Sunday night on KSKQ radio with Sister Tracy. And currently working on a Plasmatics tribute with West Beach of the Plasmatics. 4 Plasmatics tunes and 2 new originals. And me and Wes are hoping to do a show in Detroit sometime. There's a Plasmatics series or documentary or something coming out on Hulu, the network, in September. And after that happens, we're going to be planning our gig in Detroit. That's going to be killer, man. You can check out my other channel, The Church of Rock, all one word, and type in Bloody F Mess, West Beach, Wax Fruit. And that features former Plasmatics member West Beach on guitar and bass, and former Plasmatics drummer TC Tolliver on drums, and yours truly on vocals. Hey man, thanks for listening to my tale of being a carny and kind of the stuff I was getting into back in those days. I've left out a lot. There's so many stories. I think I'm just going to part them out, man, and make them YouTube videos. Until the next time, Que sera, sera. Rock and roll, my friends. Please subscribe to my channel. Help an old rocker make a few bucks, man. Give me a thumbs up, and it helps the algorithm, and it puts our videos in the more mainstream for everyone to see, the more action and activity that happens on a YouTube channel. That's why they say leave a thumbs up, leave a little comment, and maybe you know, I don't know, watch the video with all the ads sometime, because that's how we get paid. I know that's asking a lot, but if you watch the ads, we get paid more as YouTube creators. I know that's asking too much. Anyway, rock and roll, my friends. Cheers. Please subscribe. Don't be a carny. It's not really that fun, man. And yeah, there's a lot of dangers. And it's greasy. Greasy.